Hello! Thank you for waiting patiently, just a guy. Right. I started the box already because I read this little section here that says it takes 8 minutes to start. So if anyone's following along, I suggest you start the box now because it's going to take forever. Right, so day 19, hardware hacking. Wiggles goes brrr. So we're going to spy on Santa. Elf McSkidy was doing a regular sweep of Santa's workshop when he discovered a hardware implant. The implant has a web camera attached to a microprocessor and another chip. Seems like someone was planning something malicious. We must try to understand what this implant was trying to do, and we'll deal with the microprocessor and the web camera in future tasks. For now, let's uncover what the other chip was being used for. The VM that we will use in this task takes approximately 8 minutes to start. We recommend that you start the machine now to have it ready by the time you get to the practical elements of the task. The learning objectives, so how data is sent via electrical wires and low-level hardware, hardware communication protocols, how to analyze hardware communication protocols, reading the USART data from a logic capture. So welcome to the Matrix. Hardware hacking is often shrouded in mystery and is seen as a super complex topic. While there's lots of in-depth complex hardware hacking components, getting our feet wet is actually pretty simple. Computers today are incredibly powerful. This allows them to build additional features and safety measures into the communication protocols to ensure that messages are transmitted reliably. Think about the Transmission Control Protocol, TCP, which has multiple redundancies in place. It even sends 3 full packets just to start its communication. In the world of microchips, we often don't have this luxury. To make sure our communication protocols are efficient as possible, we need to keep them as simple as possible. To do that, we need to enter the world of zeros and ones. This begs the question, how does hardware take electricity and generate signals? In this task, we'll focus on digital communication. For hardware communication, we'll use a device called a logic analyzer to analyze the signals. This device can be connected to the actual electrical wires that are used for communication between 2 devices that will capture and interpret the signals being sent. In this task, we'll use the logic analyzer to determine the communication between 2 devices in the rogue implant. So the electrical heartbeat. Back to our question, if we have electricity, how can we generate a digital signal? The approach most hardware components take is to simply turn the power on and off. If the power is on, we're transmitting a signal, or a 1. If the power is off, then we're transmitting a digital 0. We call these 1s and 0 bits. To perform communication, we simply turn the power on and off in a specific sequence to transmit a bunch of 0s and 1s. If we send 8 bits, we're sending a single byte. Voila, we've just performed digital hardware communication.
This is quite cool, TBH.
Yeah. So these are the wonderful squiggly lines that we would see on a logic analyzer. So it's like an oscilloscope, essentially. Kind of. So we can transmit text data by using an ASCII table. Sending binary representation of each character, we can transmit data. However, it isn't actually just that simple. If we wanted 0 effort in our communication, we would need an electrical wire for each 0 or 1 that we want to transmit. Consider that sending a single character is 1 byte of data, thus we need 8 electrical wires. This can become a mess of wires really quick. To make this more efficient, we need fewer wires, and then we have both hardware chips agree to a specific digital protocol and configuration that will be used to transmit data. Let's look at some of the most common protocols and how they work to send data still while reducing the number of wires that we need. So USART, Universal Synchronous Asynchronous Receiver Transmitter Communication, or it's better known serial communication, is a protocol that uses 2 wires. One wire to transmit from A to B, and the other is used to receive on A to B. Transmit being the TX and receive being the RX. In essence, we connect the transmit port from one device to the receive port of the other device and vice versa. What's interesting about this protocol is that there's no clock line that synchronizes the communication of the devices. Without a clock, the devices have to agree to the configuration of communications such as the following. The communication speed, also called the baud rate or the bit rate, dictates how fast bytes of data will be sent. Agreeing to a specific rate tells each device how fast it should sample the data to get an accurate communication. While there are fixed standards for baud rates, devices can choose to use any other rate as long as both devices support it. Bits per transmission, this is usually set to 8 bits, which make a byte, but it can be configured to something else, such as 16 bits. Stop and start bits, since there's no clock, one device has to send a signal to the other device before it can send or end a data transmission. The configuration of the start and stop bit indicates or dictates how this is done. And then finally a parity bit. Since there can be errors in the communication, a parity bit will be used to detect and correct the errors in the transmission. Once the two devices agree on the configuration of the serial lines, they can now communicate with each other. A single transmission is shown in the diagram below on how the ASCII characters of S would be transmitted. So we do a start bit as a 0, and then 1 1 0 0 1 0 1 0. Thank you for the follow. So that's the code for the S, like the 8 bits of the S. Then we send a stop bit. So they do a 0 and a 1 to indicate the start and stop, with 8 bits in between. Oh, someone's buzzing my front door. BRB.
Taking quite some time to boot.
Jelaniaso says,
You learning hardware hacking?
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, does anyone know what Every is? It's like a delivery company in the UK. They delivered a fucking parcel to our next door neighbours. So I've just got it now, but... Yeah, they send you a photo saying like, oh, we've delivered it here, and it's like, that's not my porch. Who the fuck's house have you delivered this to? Anyway, our neighbours brought it over, so that's nice of them. Right, where was I at? I could now have run up and down the steps. We learning the hardware hacking? Yes, we are. Yes, doing this from 19. So, there we are. So there's a couple of caveats. The devices don't really have a way to determine if the other device is ready for communication. To solve this, some USART connections will use 2 additional lines called clear to send and request to send to communicate with the other device whether it's ready to receive or ready to transmit. Furthermore, to agree upon the voltage level, it's a binary 1 or 0. A third wire, called the ground, is required to allow the device to have the same voltage reference. However, since all of this, USART is an incredibly popular protocol in microprocessors due to its simplicity. Okay. So. How's the music coming through? It's quite loud, I think, in my ears. Looks alright on stream. So SPI, the Serial Peripheral Interface, the SPI communication protocol, is mainly used for the communication between microprocessors and small peripherals such as a sensor or an SD card. While USART communication has the clock built into the TX and RX lines, SPI uses a separate clock wire separating the clock from the data, which allows for synchronous communication. This is faster and more reliable, so the trade-off here is adding an additional wire, but we gain the speed and reliability boost. An example of the same S being transmitted using SPI is shown below. So actually, if we compare the two, so single wire's got all these bits. Here we've got a single unified clock, and then the same bits, or the same central bits here. Okay. With no start and stop bit. So the clock line tells the receiving data exactly when it needs to read the data line. Two-way communication is also possible, but quite a bit more complex than serial communication. Essentially, one of the devices is labelled the controller. This is the only device that is allowed to send clock signals. All the other devices become secondary devices that must follow the controller's clock signal to transmit data back. If two-way communication is used, instead of having a single data line, two lines are used, namely peripheral in, controller out (PICO). This means that the communication is sent from the controller and peripheral out controller in (POCI), which means that communication is sent from the secondary device back to the controller. Using this, the controller sends a clock signal and a command out to the device using PICO, and then keeping the clock signal, the controller receives data back on the PICO line, as shown in the diagram below. Does that mean it sends data out of the device using PICO, keeping the clock signal, the controller receives data back on the PICO? Okay. So here we got a third cable. Then we're sending data. Oh, don't want to zoom in. Sending the data, receiving it. Well, there is one additional change that can be made. While there is only one controller, there can be multiple secondary devices. To save wires and ports, all devices can use the same SOC. That's the clock. S-clock. PICO and POCI lines. A fourth wire called the chip select wire is used to distinguish the device that the communication is meant for. The controller can use this line to indicate to the specific device what it wants to communicate with. No, the controller can use the line to indicate the specific device that it wants to communicate to it. So it's allowing a connection to itself, not picking which one to make, as shown in the diagram below. So you need a new cable per peripheral. Okay. SPI communication
Christy
is.
says, Hi.
Hey, Christy.
Translated from German.
Hatch you.
So SPI communication is a fair bit more complex than USART. Having a dedicated clock line increases the speed at which we can communicate and improves reliability.
Herder of Cat says,
Hey, Christy.
So I2C, the inter-integrated circuit communication protocol, is created to deal with the drawbacks of both USART and SPI communication protocol. Because USART is asynchronous, it has a clock built into the transmit and receive lines. Devices have to agree ahead of time
Christy
on the...
says,
Yo just 81
Yo,
2
yo.
3 4 5 6 7.
Infinity_T says,
Okay, let's
Yo yo.
pause TTS a sec while I read it. So, where was I at?
Wow.
Furthermore, speeds are reduced to ensure communication remains reliable. On the other hand, While SPI is faster and more reliable, it requires many more wires for communication, and every single additional peripheral needs a new chip select wire. IC2 attempts to solve the problem similar to USART and I2C, only makes use of 2 lines for communication. IC2 uses a serial data SDA line and serial clock for communication. However, instead of using a chip select wire to determine which peripheral is being communicated to, I2C uses an address signal that is sent on the SDA wire. The address tells all controllers and peripherals which device is trying to communicate and to which device it's trying to communicate to. Once the signal is sent, the data signal can be used to send the actual communication to notify other controllers and peripherals that communication is taking place to prevent these devices from talking to each other. A start-stop signal is used. Each device can monitor the start-stop signal to determine if the line is busy with communication. For example, an example of such a data transmission is shown below. Oh, hardware, this is my stuff. Nice. I've not done much hardware. I think I've got something in one of these boxes somewhere. I've got something I picked up off of Minty. No, minty.net. It's not built, but it's supposed to interface with a car, so it'll let you modify the canbus, start messing with the internals of the car. But yeah, unfortunately, I wrote my car off, I haven't written it off. It's died, so it's like I've got no car anymore, so I can't really use it. So I've not built it. So yeah. When I get a new car, I'll hack its canbus. Poor car. Yeah, it was very old. I think I had it since I was 19, so that was, well, a long time ago. Right, so since the external clock line is used, communication is still faster and more reliable than USART. While it's slightly slower than SPI, the use of an address signal means that up to 1008 devices can be connected at the same 2 lines. And we'll be able to communicate. Now that we understand the basics of hardware communication protocol, we can look to analyze the logic of the rogue implant. You look 18. That's very kind of you. Yeah, if you double that, you'll actually get how old I am. Right, so probing the logic. After sending the rogue implant to the forensics lab for analysis, the following circuit diagram is uncovered. We've got, that looks like a Arduino Uno, and that's a wireless chip. I wouldn't. So based on the diagram, it looks like there's a microprocessor that's connected to an ESP32 chip. Doing some research, we can see that the ESP32 chip allows microprocessors to communicate over Wi-Fi and mobile networks. So whatever the implant was doing, it's definitely communicating with someone else. If we can intercept the communication between the microprocessor and the ESP32 chip, we would be able to see what commands and information are being sent. Seems like the perfect opportunity for our red-blue team to team up. Elf Forensic and Elf Recon are on the job. The elves realise that these chips are probably using a digital communication that can be intercepted with a logic analyzer. Looking at the wires between the chips, we see that the black wire connected to a pin called ground, red wire is connected to a pin called VIN. Elf Forensic knows from experience that this would be the ground and voltage in wires respectively, meaning that these wires are used to provide power to the chip that leaves the green and purple wires used for data transmission. Seeing that they're connected to the RX and TX0 pins, Elf Recon can deduce that this refers to the transmit and receive lines of USART communication. Hence, we are pretty sure that the protocol used for the communication is USART. Armed with the information, these elves connect the probes to the logic analyzer of the green and purple wires before powering on the implant. Immediately, superfast signals are seen on the analyzer. The elves create a logic data dump from the signals, and McSkidy is asking you to investigate what is actually being transmitted. Analyzing the logic. In order to analyze the logic dump, you'll need to use a logic analyzer tool called Saleae. however you say that. Start the machine attached to the task if you've not already, which will open in browser Windows machine where all the required tools have been installed for you. Once the machine is loaded to the desktop, double-click the Logic 2 application. Once loaded, you should see this screen. Right, I will re-enable TTS since I think we've read most of the blurbish now, so feel free to spam my ear holes. See if the text-to-speech can pronounce this properly. L-A-S-A-L-E-A.
Sex says. Celia.
Salia. So we can see the screen, and then what? Now let's import the logic data dump to start our analyzer. Once the open a capture option, open a capture, select Santa file that is on the desktop. Brrr. Do you want to be on stream? Is that it? You want to be on stream that you're chirping? So we click open and it's preparing a session. You can ignore the calibration error pop-up once loaded.
Herder of cat says.
I heard a purr. Purple heart, purple heart.
Calibration error. No, we don't want to help. Salier. Ignore that. So we get our output. You can ignore the calibration error that pops up. Once loaded, you should be able to see the captures. If you hold left control, use the mouse wheel to zoom out a bit, you can view, zoom out. Do you want to get down now, don't you? Had your 5 minutes of fame. Right. So control.
What a cutie pie. So peaceful.
There we go. So we can zoom out. There we go. You should be able to see the digital signals. D0, which is the top one, D1 refers to... Let's go! So the top two refer to the digital channels of the two lines that were probed. A0 and A1 refer to the analog data from the probes. However, your mouse... hover your mouse over the first thick line on D1.
Chipsec says.
Let go.
Ooh. So use left control on the mouse wheel to zoom again. You should be able to see the entire signal transfer. I mean, I guess that's right. Just go into the thick line there. So this is awful. Come on, I just want to zoom into that thing. This is such a shit UI. That's it, zoom into that. There we go. So we can see lots of signals. So what does that have to do with anything? What's very interesting from this screen is that you can see how the analog voltage data corresponds with the digital signal seen looking at the A1 channel versus the D1 channel. You can see that there are slight breaks in the analog data that have been corrected in the digital channel. Now that we can see the digital signal data, we should look to use the logic analyzer to read the content of the data. Click on the Analyzers tab to the right. So here it's just saying like channel 1. So the digital signal is obviously a lot more blatant than the analog one. So we click on Analyzers, which is fucking somewhere. Am I supposed to... What's that? There we go. So the 1F icon. Since we know that the protocol is USART, let's look to configure an async serial analyzer for both channel 1 and 0. We'll configure channel 1's analyzer first. If we're the true hardware reverse engineers, we would first have to figure out the rate at which data is being transmitted, as well as the specific configuration, such as parity bits and frames. However, to keep it simple, Forensic Elf has already discovered this for you. Alter the configuration to match the following and save it. So we're doing async serial, channel 1, baud rate is being halved, so 4800, bits per frame is 8, stop bit 1, parity bit none, significant bit, least significant bit sent first, it's not inverted, mode normal, so that's all correct, so we'll save that. Once saved, we can see that the data is being analysed. Click on the little terminal icon and we can actually read the data being transmitted. Oh, that's cool. Where's the terminal? Oh yeah, there. So to click that. So we actually get like the commands, I guess. So we can see the initialization sequence of the serial line and then the 3 lines of data being sent. So you've got ACK reboot, CMDX195837, and then 9600. This doesn't yet mean anything since we're only seeing one side of the data. In order to see the other messages, we need to add another analyzer to channel 0. Click on the plus icon next to analyzers. Where the hell is that? There. And then this time we're doing I2C. No. No, I don't think it's that one. Let's cancel that. Cancel. Add another one. We want another async serial. And then we want the exact same setup but for channel 0. That's better. That's more like it. So now we get like the responses back. Hello command. Please send security string. Security string accepted. Please specify new baud rate. New baud rate of 9600 accepted. So once added, you can click on the trash icon in the bottom right to remove all terminal data. Once done, click on the 3 dots next to each analyzer and select restart on both of them. Your terminal should now look something like this. Okay, I didn't need to do that, it's just done it on its own. Now that we're starting to piece together the information, it seems like the microprocessor is establishing a session with the ESP32 device to allow communication to the control server. We can now see that the full discussion between the two devices. The processor asks the ESP32 to reboot its connection to the control server. The ESP32 is happy to oblige, but requests a security code to be sent to allow the communication to the control server. Once the security code has been transmitted, the ESP32 allows the microprocessor to negotiate a new baud rate to be used for communication. Interestingly, once this new baud rate is accepted, we cannot read the rest of the output. However, since we intercepted the baud rate, we can simply edit our channel 0 analyzer to use the new baud rate to read the rest of the communication. So do this to get your flag. So we want... what would it be? It'll be our channel 0. So this is this one. So where's the edit? Is it edit? There we go. So click the little dots, go edit. Change this to 9600. Save. And we should see the rest of the data. Yeah, there we go. New baud rate accepted, sending new admin code. THM hacking hardware is fun. It's going to make me type that in somewhere, isn't it? So here's what is the flag transmitted once the new baud rate. So THM hacking dot hardware dot is dot fun. So what was all of these ones that we've completely skipped? This is an excellent progress. We're able to read the initial communication between the two devices that was used to establish a connection to the control server. Now that we have this information, we can keep monitoring the lines and analysing the logic to see any messages that are sent. We're one step closer to knowing who is responsible for the rogue implant. So, this is all going to be just walk-through knowledge check, isn't it? So, what device can be used to probe the signals being sent on the electrical wires between the two devices? That's a logic analyzer. USART is faster than SPI for communication. Nay, because SPI has the additional cable. USART uses fewer wires, yes. Or yay. USART is faster than I2C for communication. Nay. I2C uses more wires than SPI. Yay. Oh no, nay even. Nay. That's because it uses all of the connections to the peripherals, so there's a load of extra controls. SPI is faster than I2C. No, would it? I think yay. Yeah. Because this has to stop and wait for the peripherals to be ready to transmit. What's the maximum number of devices that can be connected on a single pair of I2C lines? That was 1008. Yeah. What's the new baud rate that was negotiated? That's 9600. If you're looking for a challenge, try our recent threats module. Yeah, cool, we'll do that another day. Cool. So that's it, so that's 90. So it's mostly just a knowledge check, learning all of this with one or two examples of the actual demo. So quite interesting. I'm not sure how you'd use this going forwards. Like, you'd have to have like some hardware. I actually have. See if I can dig it out. I've got my Proxmark that we could tinker with. I guess you can do stuff on there. I do have a wireless thing somewhere as well, digging around. Must be in my cupboard. Let's have a blenders. That looks promising.
Herder of Cat says.
Score.
Translated from Welsh.
No, that's not it. I may have just break things. I think I found it. Just broke one of the boxes I've got in my cupboard. So this was sent to me a few years ago and I've never built it. we've got like a nano canbus. I have to turn my broadcaster off. Okay, so yeah, the got a nano canbus. So this you can cable up, and it's got a another one. It's still in its box. There's like that's a bigger version of it, if you can see.
Wicked.
You can see like that's the first iteration versus the second. So, and then that's the newer one.
Nice.
That's like another one, just without the black hat logo on it. Yeah, they got. I haven't even opened it yet, but there's a bit of kit in there. Let's see. So that, along with this piece of, so that's a. See that? It's got some screws in the way, but that's like that'll connect to your car. It's just an adapter that goes like into wherever you've got the socket. I do have a Bluetooth one as well somewhere. There it is. So that's the Bluetooth one. So if you've got that connector on your car, this will connect to it through Bluetooth, and then this will connect to it through this implant device. So it gives you a lot more control over what the canbus is doing, and then you can just basically rewrite the car's ECU. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I've never touched. I mean, you can see I've never even soldered it up.
I hope your mom walks in on you. Embarrassed smiley face.
If I lived with my mum, that would be something that could happen, but sadly not. Right. Okay, back invisible again. So yeah, I've got all these things to build, I've just never got round to it. And now I don't even have a car to break into, but I've got to turn it off again. Turn it off. So you get a...
Christy says,
That cool toe.
Have you ever seen Big Rhino?
Car hacking village.
Yeah. So this is Big Rhino, the mascot. We've got the recovery mode. Yeah, I do need to build one of these at some point. I should probably get a car that I can connect it to before I do it. Yeah.
Have you seen those before?
I've got one other thing.
Murder of Cat says,
I should start attending these events.
So this is a breadboard.
Christy says,
Get a borrowed car just Eggy.
It's a literal breadboard. That was the lanyards from that year. It's pretty good.
Man that looks good.
Alright. Someone's nicking my package. Right, let's terminate the box. And can we raid anyone? Is anyone on?
Hammond new hair. Yes, Hattrix is on.
Actrix.
With Carlos.
Oh, and like Naham Sec, everyone's on. Right, let's do a raid over to Hacktrix.
Web link.
Oh, don't worry, I can see the link, but so we've got it there. So we're raiding Hacktrix live. Let's go check them out. Again, we'll be back on tomorrow for the tomorrow's Advent of Cyber. I might actually be back on later on today because I've got a bit of progress I want to make on Horizon, and I'm not doing anything else. So yeah, we'll be back on in a bit. But yeah, till then, we'll see you over at Hacktrix. We'll give them some love, and I'll see you in a bit later if I play. So